Hey guys, what's up? It's La coming back to ya with another episode of Car Rides with La. And today it is another Monday, and I've noticed something about Mondays. I tend to be the latest getting out. Although now that I'm really looking at the time and thinking about it, I suppose I'm pretty on track with whatever time I usually am. I guess we'll see, but I guess I feel like the first day of working again, it's just things are slightly off. But I'm probably, in comparison to the average, I'm assuming I'm actually less affected by it because with all the pop discourse about Mondays and how dreadful people think they are, I actually think Mondays are pretty great. And my reasoning for that is sound. So Monday is the first day back from a break. It's the first day back from a break. So it's the easiest day of the week because I'm fresh. I just had a weekend and now it's Monday and I'm very rest, restored, and replenished. And I don't understand why people don't like Mondays. I mean, Mondays, it probably is the best day of the week. By the time you get to Friday, you have been going to work for 5 days straight. That's very tiring. Friday is usually the most difficult day because it's the 5th day in a row of work or school or whatever. So I don't understand what the discourse is. Now, of course, I know what's going on. It just has to do with primitive human perception of time and where things fall, and how Monday you have to wait so long to get through the day, but Friday the weekend is right there, so it's very exciting, and so people feel good, and I get that. But it's still I'm just pointing out the flawed nature of it, because logically speaking, the earlier days in the week are the easier days because they're closer in proximity to a break. So it is merely human perception that causes the suffering. And when you think about that, you probably think to yourself, what other ways do humans misunderstand and misinterpret these kind of concepts? In what other ways do they do that? I think it's food for thought. For sure, it's food for thought. Because, yeah, I mean, I think you guys get my point. It's absolutely something to contemplate and think about. Because just the error of human perception, the error of our perception of pain and of what's bad and what's good is showcased in that perception of the week. And I wonder what that means if you correlate that with the way humans interact with, I was going to say interface with, but I'm not certain if that's actually correct or not. And it really makes you wonder. I think it really makes you wonder, what else are we messing up on that badly? Or what else do we get wrong so badly? What I wanted to talk about today, because I thought about this during my walk and run on Sunday, is this theory of preemptive reasoning, or as I thought was more a literary, alliterary? Is that, because you wouldn't say alliterative? What I thought was more alliteratively appropriate. Preemptive processing. So it's essentially, what I realized is a lot of times I've noticed that I get into, well, no, I don't get into arguments, but people get into arguments with me, honestly, most of the time. I actually, I think we're going to have another breakthrough with this thought. I actually don't start that many arguments. Like, people start with me arguments more than vice versa. And I'm realizing why that's the case. It's just because it's that whole unsolicited advice thing that I've talked about, and how you're not supposed to do that. But that's not, it's never really what I'm trying to do. It's just like, I don't know, like I just talk about stuff. That's literally what goes through my head. I'm not thinking about giving advice. And I guess I just end up giving it. But I'm not trying to. Like, there's no thought in my mind, I'm going to give advice now. Like, no. Like, I'm just talking. And that's how my conversations work. And I guess people see that. They see that as unsolicited advice. Or something. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And it just gets messy. But to me, it's not. To me, that's not my intention. And so what I realize is I bring up factoids and pieces of information normally, because that's just how I converse typically. I do make jokes sometimes, don't get me wrong, especially with certain people. But as a baseline, I don't really make jokes. I don't see that as a productive means to communicate. And most of the time, I just don't make jokes. I don't intrinsically think to make a joke. It comes up. I make some here and there. But it's definitely not my primary focus when it comes to... It is not my primary focus when it comes to my communication. It's not humor. It's just not. I like to be serious, if that makes sense. Wow, the sun looks red. That's very cool. You know, in the morning it's like a pink or a red. See, that's the second old person I've seen just like standing out there in their driveway. I don't know. You know, there is something, I do like going more through the back roads. But the highway is just, like, you can't deny that the highway is better. You just can't. You just can't. Now, where was I? So I talk, and what I'm realizing is I'm saying things that people likely have never heard of before. Either they've entirely never heard of it at all, or it's things that are contrary to pop discourse. So I'll say it, and then people want to... I think people get embarrassed when they don't really have anything to say, and so they can make something up. They just kind of make up an answer. But what I'm realizing is also some people argue. I think, and I mean, this is... I honestly should ask this to GPT, so don't think I'm being like affirmative, because I do not know if this is the case. But I think a lot of times when people are told new information, their first instinct is to just argue with it, even though they don't know themselves and they don't have any reasoning to back up their counter argument. They still make it. They still make the counter argument. Because I just feel like throughout life, and I didn't think, because I think I gave people the benefit of the doubt too much throughout my life and thought that they were somewhat similar to me when it comes to thoughtfulness and how conscious they were of things. I didn't think that people are the way they are. As I've done this show, as I've reflected on people, as I've thought more and more about people, I constantly am lowering my expectations in terms of where other people are at, especially in terms of conscious interest and desire. And I really think my whole life I've been giving people such a strong benefit of the doubt that it's really blurred my comprehension of actually where other people are at. I mean, I used to remember I'd be afraid of being like looked at or judged more so when I was younger, like walking around school and seeing people. I would always be thinking, oh, I hope they're not thinking about me. Like, I hope they're not making judgments or observations about me. You know what I mean? I was always thinking like that. And I'm realizing now that that is only because I'm very observant. And I'm not necessarily making negative judgments of other people, because I'm not like that. But I do notice when other people do things. I always did. And so because I always noticed everything and would remember a lot of things, I just assumed that everybody else was fairly similar to that, and it caused me a lot of stress and anxiety. Now that I've been working, I've learned very quickly that people are not aware of things at all, and they really don't remember much. And I guess this is a common trope, right? Because they always say that, like, oh, nobody's going to remember if this or that happened in high school. Just be chill. Don't care. Don't have the social anxiety. It's not going to matter. Just chill. That's always what they tell the insecure, when I was in high school as a teenager and stuff. But you really, I don't even know. It might even be worse, like when you're dealing with adults. I feel like adults might have an even worse memory than we did back in school. And of course, I don't know how it is now. I'm assuming now people's memory is generally even worse, because more people engage with short form content unintentionally, just as a distraction, and that inevitably makes you forget about things. It's impossible to not have it make you forget about things. But I actually like can't believe, like, when I meet people, I guess I put so much intellect onto them. I really do. I mean, I see people as I would see things the way I see them, they would see. And oh my gosh, I mean, the longer I've been around this, because it's different. When you're in school, things are different. I'm realizing now, especially in high school, there's a lot of ego, and there's a lot of people who you don't really see them for who they are, because there's just so much ego involved. But at work, it's a little bit different. Now, similar but different. You see people's demons eventually. You see the things about them that they may not show the world. You see that because you're spending 8-hour shifts with the same people, and it's not 20 people in a class. It's just a few people that you know. It's less people. And so you learn things, you know? And you see that people have a way worse memory than you and are way less aware of what's even happening than you. And it's strange. It just makes me feel so weird, especially being the youngest person there. I mean, I just never thought... I thought work was this serious thing that I was not going to be able to live up to. And I feel like now, if I was given the opportunity, I could really be in a higher level place. I mean, I don't even know. It's crazy, but my confidence is increasing a little bit. It is. And I hope that I don't want to have an inflated ego. I've always said it's actually very important to stay cautious because you still want to feel the need to improve even when you're already doing well. Like it wouldn't be good for me to think now that I'm better than people, and so now I can just no, because then, yeah, you get what I'm saying? I think y'all get what I'm saying. You can't fall behind, and that's how you fall behind, is when you start letting stuff get to your head. So, as someone who has a vested interest in being the best I can be, I still have to be looking for ways and feeling some sense of pressure to do so. Now, what was I going to talk about? Yeah, I know, 17 minutes in. Let's actually go back to what we were talking about, which was my theory of preemptive processing. So in addition to, I think, some people's first impulse when they hear new information is to argue with it, there's also this thing, preemptive processing, where I think the way my thoughts work is a very good connect the dots, where you have multiple thoughts as each of the dots, and everything is connected. Now, most people's thoughts, I think, is a connect the dots that is incomplete. Some of the dots are connected, but they're not done yet. Like the connect the dots isn't done. There's still... You can't really tell what the thing is. You know what I mean? Like there's some connections, but there's not. Whereas mine is a completed paper. It's all the lines are connecting to different dots. And I actually think it's a good point, because I usually could just tell what the thing was when I was a child without finishing it. But regardless, that was... Oh my gosh, back in the good old days where when you were out with your family at a restaurant and you were 3 years old, they gave you books to play with. Oh my gosh. I get hit so hard with that kind of stuff. Because I remember being that young. I think I was probably 3 or 4 doing the connect the dots. In a pretty nice restaurant, because the economy was a lot better back then, and wow. And it was paper. It wasn't screens like we have now. Now screens have just enveloped everything, and we can't escape the screens. But that was good times. Anyways, people have lots of concepts and thoughts, random facts that they've heard over time, but I don't think they're able to pattern recognize and take those thoughts and facts and identify similarities and differences between them. I don't think people can do that. And I think people interpret things just as they are. Oh, the grass is green, the sky is blue, and everything is a separate piece of information. Right? Kind of like that. Not much thought put into, oh, well, this is good and that's good. You know what I'm saying? And so people, I don't know why, I'm kind of, so when I'm bringing up concepts to people, I don't think their ability to connect is as strong. Now, obviously, everybody does. I think to an extent, everybody does connect concepts and ideas. I don't think it's anything special, but I think the speed with which I do it and the ease with which I do it is what's notable. Because I kind of think when I talk to people sometimes, that's the only time they actually connect the dots, is from something I said. Like, that's just how it feels. I don't know what's actually the case or not, because you can't see the rest of people's lives, but just in my observation of how other people operate, that appears to be the case. And so preemptive processing is when you've already been exposed to enough concepts that are adjacent enough that you very quickly can grasp a new concept. Because I know so many different things, and I know just enough about those so many different things that it's easy to deduce what the conclusion is. I'm realizing there's a lot of deeper things that a lot of people have zero comprehension for, and it's because they have zero preemptive exposure. Because without preemptive exposure, what am I saying? Without preemptive exposure, it's a lot harder to figure this stuff out just off the bat. Like, just, it's difficult. It's difficult to figure out these things. It's not easy for someone to, on the fly, have to absorb a new concept And the worst part is a lot of people have scattered opinions and perspectives that may actually contradict the new fact that they're being told. And that causes a lot of resistance too, because you have to remember, even a lot of things people think is fact can be very incorrect, but they just never realize that. They go through their life thinking how they want to think, and since nothing gets in the way of that, they never question it. Until something is presented to them, but most people also don't have any information to really convey. So that's when it becomes a problem. It's exactly when it becomes a problem. And I guess this is why arguments happen in the first place, because it's when two people have two ideas that they take as truth, and then they don't have reasoning for it because most people don't reason things out, and then they're both arguing with each other about something that isn't important. What I want to add too is that I honestly think that a lot of people see life as a series of random events, which is fundamentally inaccurate. There are a lot of very observable patterns in existence, and I just think it's very difficult for people to quantify it, see it, and acknowledge it. I think, too, it really works in a way where, because I've thought about this kind of stuff so much, there's probably smarter people who would hear this video and disagree with it. And there's also probably dumber people who would see this video and disagree with it. Because I think at the end of the day, people have pretty minimal awareness of things like, what's the norm? And I've said it a million times, but it's because of a lack of mathematical comprehension, and then as extension of that, a lack of statistical comprehension. So it's very difficult for people to know the norm, and I've seen that my whole life. I actually don't think I've met anybody who understands what the norm is more than I do. It's just that I'm not very normal, so in terms of my intrinsic thoughts about it, they could be off, and then other people just happen to be closer to the median in a lot of ways. So then they feel like they could be more normal, if that makes sense. Or they just naturally get a lot of things right because of human assumption. Because I don't know. If you're naturally closer to the median, you're inherently going to share a lot of similar thoughts just because you're already there. You're already kind of close to the median. As somebody like me who is not close to the median, it takes a lot more effort, but what I'm saying is the potential could potentially be higher if enough statistics are read and looked at. I guess I'm having a hard time explaining this. People who are naturally a part of the median naturally just get more things right, but that's just based on probability in terms of comprehension of the norm. But everybody still has abnormalities or atypical behaviors. Everybody does. But it's just that they happen to get more right than I would get because my norms and means are further. So, but mine have the potential to be more accurate through good data and intuition. Because now that I have a further grasp on things, there's a lot of times if I make guesses about percentiles, they're fairly accurate, which is a good sign in terms of comprehending the norm. Because I've just heard it said so many times in really silly kind of ways, like, oh, I want to be more normal. Oh, you're not normal enough. I just want to be normal. That's like this thing people say, but it's a fictional. It's fictional. Because what they mean is they want to feel normal. They don't want to be normal. Nobody wants to be normal. But people want to feel normal. Not everybody does, but most people would like to feel. Though I think it actually depends on with what the normalcy is, because some things, I think there's some ways people want to be normal, and then other ways people actually like being unique. But I still think even unique people still want to fit in somewhere. I don't think even rebels have their own cliques and things. I mean, you can't just escape that. You know, I think I've said that before when it comes to isolation. I don't think anybody really wants isolation. You may want to be isolated from certain people, but in terms of isolation as a whole, just don't believe that is something that people actually want. I think everybody wants a sense of community. It's just they want their own community or something like that. But people don't think about it that far, and then people like being antisocial. Because it's the vibe or whatever. But they have no idea what they want. And that's what's crazy, is that was there a time when I also didn't know what I wanted when I was a child? Not really sure. It's a very, very good question. It's a very, very good question. It's something to ponder. Of course, it's hard to remember when you're a child, but I just remember in the time I grew up, a lot of that stuff was fairly normal. Sorry, I'm thinking and I'm not speaking. I'm just thinking about, I just thought like super fast. and it's a bunch of stuff that I didn't verbalize, but I'm just thinking of when I was a kid, Toys R Us, you had toys, and you saw toys in store, you wanted it, because this was before a lot of the internet stuff. So in the age of the internet now, there's so much suggested to us that it's hard to even think about what is our own intuition. And it was similar, but it was less severe in the past, because you would walk in a toy store like Toys R Us and there would be toys and you would kind of pick what you want. And it's different, right? It's different. I don't think it was as severe. That's kind of the idea. It wasn't as crazy as being literally bombarded with a million different things. Yeah, no, it's difficult. I still wish I had the brain chip so I could just, you could just see the thoughts too, and then the show would be a million times better. I wonder how I could do that. No, that's not possible. I was gonna say try to like record 2 separate audios. No, you know what I'd have to do? I'd have to be able to write down what I was thinking as I was speaking. That's what it would have to be, which is obviously super difficult to pull off. I don't think that's a skill that I have. So it's just like that's the only way I would think that would work, is if I could do that. So I'm just thinking how to put this thing, this sun reflector thing, because I've been forgetting to do it. And I realize I'm always sitting here in the morning anyway, so I might as well put them in my window, because it does actually reduce the temperature like a lot. Like, I think it's worth it. I just wish I had one that was a little bit better fitted, I suppose, but it is what it is. We will see how it goes like this. And, yeah, I mean, I think things were different, but I'm just wondering if... No, because then, like, I was just getting ice cream the other day, and, you know, like a father asked their kid what they wanted, and then they didn't have what they had wanted, so he asked them, oh, would you like this instead? And then the kid said something, and then like a minute later said something else. So, no, I mean, we never know what we want. Which is, it's actually crazy if you think about it, because that means what a lot of people want and get. And even now, it's like, you know, I get into things, I buy them, like the desktop, and then, you know, some months later you're like, oh, I don't know if I really wanted that. Isn't that crazy about people? Like, we really don't think things through. Something comes over us. I wonder what the explanation for that is. Is it spiritual? Is it demonic in sometimes? How do we know what we want? All right. Well, I think it's been schla, but it is time to buy schla. So, see you schla.